YouTube, welcome back to my channel. My name's Becca. I'm here with my dog Toad. He's hanging out with me today. And today we're actually going to review 7th Heaven again. But this time, instead of checking out the first episode of the first season, we are going to be checking out the last episode of the first season, which is a two-parter, but we are just going to watch the second part of it. So we'll do a little bit of a recap first on the first part, and then there may be some things from the season that come up that we're unsure of because I haven't watched this in a long time and I'm not sure what the rest of the season has entailed and what has happened. So we're going to do a little bit of a recap, but we're going to also learn some things along the way. So I'm excited to dive into it. You know, I hope you're excited to take a look with me and, you know, let's get it started. So in the first episode that we watched, it was revealed at the end of the episode that Annie's mother had leukemia and that she was not going to seek treatment for it, and that she decided she was just going to, you know, basically spend time with family. You know, it just didn't make sense for her to do treatment, and that was her decision, obviously. So later on in this season, she does end up passing away. And in this first part of the finale, it's basically, that's not the one we're watching, but as a recap, Annie's dad visits, but he brings his new girlfriend. Mind you, it has only been like 6 months since her mom passed away, so rightfully so, Annie is very upset about that. And that continues on into this episode, so we'll see more of that. Another recap to note, Matt, the oldest brother, he likes this girl named Heather. She is deaf, so, you know, there's complications because he doesn't really know sign language. She's playing hard to get, basically. So it's kind of about that. And then another, like, really huge thing to note is that Annie sees that, so her father visits in that first episode. She sees that he brings his new girlfriend to church, and she's offended by this. So she runs out of the church, and Mary runs after her and, you know, just trying to comfort her, the oldest daughter, Mary. And Mary ends up getting hit by a car. Horrible, horrible, horrible. So that is a little bit of a recap of the first part of the finale, and now we're going to get into the second part of the finale. So the episode starts out with all the kids, except for Mary, obviously, at home, you know, obviously worried about her, and the parents are at the hospital with Mary. She's getting surgery on her knee. And so that's happening. Everyone's kind of freaking out. It's a little chaotic, you know, kind of a crazy start to the finale, which I told you was going to be dramatic. You know how they do it in the finales. Let's just start from there. In the first part, after this recap that they give you about the first part and, you know, other parts of the season, we get into the scene where someone knocks on a door, and the front door of the Camdens. And mind you, it's just the kids at home because the parents are at the hospital with Mary. So Lucy and Simon are, you know, at the front door, and they're asking, like, who is it? Because they're kids, and they're like, well, stranger danger, you know. And finally, this guy, Jimmy, comes in, and this guy, he is so boring. Like, it's like, it would be like talking to a wall. That's the vibe I get from him. Like, he's a boring person, but also he's judgmental and a jerk. So what I'm getting is, mind you, I didn't watch the entire season, but Lucy got highlights in her hair, I believe. She, I guess, originally was a brunette. Now she has highlights. I think it looks good. I mean, I'll insert a picture. I think it looks pretty good. But he's like, I can't believe you got highlights without consulting me. He's just being a douche. So he shows up and he's like, oh yeah, sorry about your sister, but also I hate your highlights. How could you do this without like consulting me? And it's like, her sister's in the freaking hospital and you're worried about her highlights? Like, and anyway, moving on from that scene. So next we get into the next scene. So the next scene is at the hospital and this guy shows up asking for Mary. And the grandfather is also there because he is still in town because he and his girlfriend Ginger had come to town. And the grandfather's name is Charles. So they're both in town. So, you know, obviously he's going to come visit her and make sure that his granddaughter's okay. So he's behind this guy who's pretending to be Mary's brother because they're only letting family in to see Mary right now. And she's, you know, in surgery or whatever. Or finishing up surgery. So the grandfather's kind of like, okay, this guy must be like dating my granddaughter, right? He has to know her somehow. Maybe they're friends, whatever. So he starts like talking to him, and the guy's name is Wilson. So now Wilson is a teenager, and they went on one date, I believe, him and Mary so far. But the crazy thing about Wilson is that he is a teen father. And for this show, that is crazy for them. It's a crazy thing for them to handle in this show. But I do remember him, and I'll insert a picture. I do remember having a teenage crush on him growing up. So that's a side note. But anyway, he shows up. He wants to see Mary. They let him in because he says he's the brother. The grandfather and him walk in together. Annie's still pissed at her dad, Charles, so that's a little tense. But basically, Wilson goes up to the father, Eric. He's like trying to get stuff out of the vending machine. Eric seems to know him, I guess, you know, because in this family you kind of have to approve each person. So like they don't know that he has a son. They think he has a little brother. But right now they think he's a nice guy and he went on that one date with Mary, so you know they know who he is. So Eric's like not be able to get anything out of the vending machine. And Wilson's like, is there anything I can do? Like, because she's not out of surgery yet. And Eric's like, you know, he basically offers to get burgers for them to make sure that, like, they can eat something. Because, like, the vending machine's not working. And they need to eat while they're there. And who knows how long they're going to be there with the surgery. So he offers, which I thought was very nice. Especially for, like, a teenager. I mean, obviously he's very responsible if he's, like, a kid. Like, because he has to take care of the kid. But, yeah, he offers to grab burgers for the parents, which was very nice, I thought. A few scenes later, it's revealed by the doctor that Mary has a knee injury, which I'm thinking to myself, I wonder how this is going to impact things later, because she's really good at basketball, she loves basketball. So I'm not really sure how that's going to play out later on, but he does confirm that she has a knee injury, and that this surgery is pretty much over. So then in the next scene, they go and visit Mary because obviously she's out of surgery. She's a little loopy from the drugs they put her on for the surgery, but she kind of lets it slip that, like, she doesn't want Wilson's son to be worried about her, I guess. I mean, he's pretty young, the son, Billy, but, like, still. She's like, oh, like, won't your son be worried? But the thing is, when she's saying this, her parents are in the room, too, and they don't know that it's his son. They think it's his brother. So she kind of lets it slip a little bit, but then the parents are like, I think you're just confused. You mean his brother, right? And she's like, oh, yeah. So that's, like, you know, it's potentially a little spoiler there for the parents, but they don't really think anything of it. Alright, so in the next scene, Charles and Ginger, his girlfriend, are at a taxi because Ginger is going home because she feels like, you know, she's not really accepted by Annie and the family, and she feels like, you know, it's just awkward. So she's just like, I'm gonna go home, you know, because I think they live in, like, Arizona, and I think the Camdens live somewhere in California, so she's gonna fly home. So she's like, yeah, I'm gonna head out, basically. She's like, I'm gonna go. And then he's like, oh, guess I'll see you when you pick me up from the airport. And she's like, nah, actually, I think we need some time apart. So she breaks up with him. he's a little dramatic about it. Like, they had to have only known each other, been dating for like a month or two, right? Like, so stop being dramatic. He's like, I mean, maybe, whatever. He's like, just relax. Like, not even a few months, so just calm down. So basically, she ends it. She takes off. He's all sad. The grandpa's all sad. And then we get to the next scene where the kids are all out to eat because the parents are like, go take the kids out. You know, they're restless. They're upset about Mary. They're worried about Mary. So he's like telling Matt, like, Eric's like to Matt, hey, take all the kids out to eat. And interestingly enough, they have them go to this restaurant, and it's owned by a deaf family. So most of the people that go there are deaf and doing sign language, and the waiters do sign language and everything like that, which is pretty cool. I don't think I've seen restaurants like that. I mean, maybe you have. I think that's a great idea, but I wish they had more of them because I haven't experienced any personally, but let me know if you know of any. That'd be great. So anyway, they go out to eat, and just a side note, like, the waiter at the restaurant kind of reminds me of the actor Tom Felton who played Draco Malfoy, and I don't really know why, because it's like definitely not him, but like, I don't know. I'll insert a picture. You let me know if he looks like him, because I kind of feel like he does. But basically they're at the restaurant, and like, Matt is trying to learn some sign language from like the waiter and stuff, and they're all like, all the kids are trying to learn it, which is good. I mean, that's great. And so then they all encourage Matt to go over because the girl that he likes, Heather, is there at the restaurant, and like, they're like, go talk to her. Like, they know that he has like a crush on her, so like, go talk to her. You know, all the kids are like, you know, go show her your game, whatever. So he goes over to her and he's trying to impress her, and she's like not having it at first, I guess. Like, like I said, she's playing hard to get, so she's like not having it at first. And he's trying. So the kids are all watching, and as he tries to flirt with this girl and do sign language that he just learned, and he does it wrong. So the friends are like, but he's trying, you know? And her friends, Heather's friends, as he goes over, like, they're laughing at him, and they're like, oh, like, haha, you did it wrong. And then the kids are all watching him, and they're like, oh no. Like, so he's not doing so great. So then Ruthie decides that she wants to help. So she's the youngest one. She decides she's gonna go over and help with the situation with Heather and Matt. So she walks over to where they're standing, and then she tells, in sign language, and also saying it at the same time, she tells Heather that Matt loves her. Now, I don't know if they have been dating or if, like, they're on and off. I'm not really sure, but, like, if this is, like, they haven't even gone out yet, and she just told Heather that he loves her, like, that's a little extreme in my opinion. Like, Ruthie's really trying, but, like, I don't know, I just feel like if they haven't known each other that long, it's a little excessive in my opinion. So she says, he loves you. Then Heather's kind of like, alright, I'll consider it, you know, like, maybe he's a good guy. I don't know. So there's a consideration there. So something's a brewing with those two. So moving on from that, we get into a scene with Lucy asking everyone about her hair, because she got these highlights, right? And so So basically the next scene, Lucy is upset because Jimmy, her boyfriend, doesn't like her highlights or whatever, or isn't happy that he didn't consult her about her highlights. Like, okay, bro, because you're such a catch, you know? Anyway, she's upset. She's in the kitchen talking to the family, and Simon's like coming up with straight facts, basically, saying, like, you didn't do these highlights for Jimmy. You did them for yourself, girl. And she's like, you know, they're just trying to boost her up. They're all trying to boost her up and be like, hey, like, you did it for you, and they look good, you know? So the whole family's talking. I guess the premise is that Simon talked her into doing these highlights. So now he feels responsible for this whole thing. So he's trying to make it better, you know? But he's also just like, you know, he's right at the end of the day. I think it looks good. I don't know. Who cares what Jimmy thinks, you know? Jimmy sucks. Okay, so then the mom's like, yeah, like, I think it looks good too. The highlights look nice. And then poor Matt, they always put him in these, like, incestual situations because the next scene, the next part, he's, like, the mom turns to him, I guess, to say something nice. And he's like, I think the highlights look nice. I think it looks sexy. I don't know. Poor Matt. Like, just, why do they keep putting him in these incestual situations? I feel bad. I just feel like, no, you shouldn't really be calling your sister sexy. You could say, oh, it looks nice. Like, it looks pretty. I don't know about sexy for your sister, but okay. Anyway, moving on from that borderline incestual comment. Then the dad walks in to make it even weirder. And she's like, she likes that Matt said her hair looks sexy because Jimmy's obviously not saying it to her, so someone has to compliment it. And so then she's asking the dad, Lucy's asking the dad, like, do you think my hair looks sexy? And he's basically, I'm like, thank God he didn't say, like, it did. Because that would just be, I probably honestly would have turned off the episode if that was the case. So anyway, he basically says, if my 13-year-old daughter had sexy hair, I'd just ask her to shave her head. Like, just no. Basically, it looks nice, but no. And that's an appropriate thing to say. I think that's reasonable. Anyway, we're moving on to the next scene. In the next scene, we get this, like, so she's like a neighbor, like, kind of a neighbor, but also, like, I think she's like a member of the church. Her name is Gladys Bink, and she's kind of an icon. And so basically, we get this scene where she is going to visit Mary at the hospital to, like, bring her flowers and you know, just, like, see how she's doing. I guess she's like a family friend. So she's going in, and Mary introduces, because her grandfather's there, Charles. So she introduces both of them to each other, and, you know, they basically have an introduction. And then it's followed by a scene where Gladys basically admits that she stole the flowers from someone else's garden. So that was kind of funny. I'm like, alright, like, just openly admitting that, oh, this lady won't miss her flowers. I was like, alright. So anyway, she admits to that, again, kind of an icon. And then she, like, it seems like she's trying to hit on Charles. Like, I'm not really sure. But, like, there's a whole scene where she's like, hey, I'll drive you to the airport to go home to Charles, because he's, like, gonna go home now. And he's like, no, I'll just take a cab. And she's like, no, I'll drive you home. So then she keeps insisting on it. She's relentless with him. And he finally is like, all right, like, you can drive me or whatever. And so yeah. So basically, like, they're talking, and she's, like, trying to talk him through this whole situation with Ginger, the girlfriend, and losing someone, and because she's, like, around that age, so, like, I guess she feels she has experience in it, so she's trying to talk to him about all that, so maybe she's just trying to help. I don't know. But anyway, she's a queen. So moving on from that scene. Alright, so they have a whole scene where Jimmy, Lucy's boyfriend, they're at school, her and Lucy and Jimmy, and they're having a disagreement about her hair again, because he's like, why didn't you consult me? because that's required, I guess, for him. So there's a whole scene between Jimmy and Lucy, and they're at school, and he's like, why didn't you consult me about your hair? And then she's like, well, like, I like it, you know? I think it's nice. So he basically breaks up with her and says, oh, come to your senses on this, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, honestly, girl, like, you go. You go. You're done with him. Take the trash out. This guy sucks. He's controlling. He's boring. And the sad part is I think he comes back later, eventually. And I hate to be a spoiler on that one, but I think, I'm pretty sure he's in, like, season 2 or 3. A little bit. But not, like, for a long time. So we'll see about that. But anyway, they break up. And good riddance. But yeah, basically, she's gonna be fine. Jimmy's gonna regret this. And we know he does, because he comes back later. So, like, just, like, good riddance, you know? But I guess we'll see it later. So basically there's a scene with Eric and Annie, and he's saying to her, like, it's not uncommon for people that have lost, like, a significant other to move on quickly, who were once, like, happily married. But she's basically like, okay, so you're saying if I passed away, you'd move on quickly? Great news. That's great to know. And I just love that line from her. Like I said, Annie does not care. She's like, you know what, this is how I feel, like, whatever, you know? And so, yeah, so basically he's, like, trying to reason with her to get her to accept Ginger as the dad's girlfriend, and she's kind of like, no, it's too soon, unacceptable. In the next scene, it's Gladys and Charles talking, and she's just telling him about a story about how, you know, she had a daughter who pushed away this guy she was dating, and she always regretted it, and she doesn't want that to happen to him. So just like a situation that applies to his situation right now. And honestly, like, I'm just thinking the whole time, like, why do I want to be Gladys when I grow up? Like, she's an icon. I just love her. So she's funky. I like her. And then we go into the next scene. So in the next scene, Wilson, the guy that went on one date with Mary, comes to see Eric, Reverend Camden, at his office. So it's like at the church. So he goes to see him, and he brings his brother Billy, who's like, he looks like he's like 2. I don't know. You guys tell me. I don't know kids' ages. Anyway, he comes in, and basically there's this whole scene where Wilson is saying, like, you know, they just start talking about sex. So he's like, you know, I have a friend of mine that I need advice about, and this friend had sex, and this friend got a girl pregnant as a teenager, and then it gets a little sad because it sounds like, you know, they had the baby, and then they were, like, she was pregnant, they decided to get married, and then when she was giving birth, there were complications, and she passed away. So he is a single teenage father, basically. Well, his parents help him, but, like, you know, it's a lot for, like, a teenager to go through. So he's explaining, like, this, basically saying it's his friend, but, like, Eric knows it's him. Eric knows he's talking about himself. So basically, now Eric knows, like, I'm a teen father. This is not my brother. This is my son, Billy. And I made a mistake. And he's like, if anyone understands the ramifications of sex before marriage, it's me, because obviously all this stuff happened, you know, like, it's terrible, and that she passed away, the mom, and then, you know, he's a single father now, and he's a teenager trying to like a baby trying to raise a baby, basically. So he's like, I totally get it. And so he's talking to Eric about it and being upfront about everything, finally. And so it's something for Eric to think about, I guess, later. You know, it'll come up later again. So we'll see how that goes. The whole, like, this whole next scene is Heather and Matt talking. I guess he's at school and she's, like, visiting him. I don't know. So they're, you know, they're talking outside the school, and he's, like, writing notes to her, and I just keep thinking, like, he really needs to learn more sign language. But then here I am as someone that doesn't know sign language saying that. So, like, I'm like, who am I to judge, you know? Like, I don't. Like, I mean, we should probably all learn it, honestly, because that would be awesome. But anyway, I think he should probably learn more because he's going to be dating this girl. Is he just going to keep writing her notes? Like, I don't know. I just feel like he might need to, like, keep working on the sign language thing. But he is trying, so there's that. So then this other guy starts approaching, and we later find out his name is Michael, and he goes to school with them. And so, he starts, like, telling Matt, oh, like, how's your sister doing? I heard about, like, her getting hit. And he's like, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm so sorry that I did it. So he's admitting that he was the one that hit Mary and drove away in the parking lot of the church. So this guy just admitted to a hit and run. And he's a teenager. And this guy really, like, what the hell? And so then Matt and him start getting into a fight. Matt punches him because he's like, you just literally left my sister on the ground, didn't even get out of your car. You know, what a jerk. Like, and so then they get into a fight at the school, like outside the school, which is not like Matt. It's not really him, but he's protective of his sister because, like, what the hell? You hit my sister with a car and then drove away. And now you're telling me this in the school parking lot? So then they break up the fight, and Matt doesn't get in trouble because the teacher, like, asks Michael, like, hey, like, you know, what's going on? And Michael's just like, I just fell over and Matt was helping me up. Because he's like, well, I already did enough craziness that, like, you know, I don't need to get him in trouble. I feel even worse, basically, about everything that happened. So that is, like, that scene. So we finally find out, like, because the whole episode, we don't know who hit Mary with the car. Like, we have no idea. They're trying to figure it out. And so now we know it was Michael. And putting context clues together, it seems like Michael was in a previous episode, I think on the first date with Wilson and Mary. I guess they were at, like, the pool hall or something. And he tried to, like, he was, like, bullying Wilson because he's a teen dad, I guess, and he was being, like, a jerk to him. So there's been other incidences before this with this Michael and Mary, and he's kind of just, he's known as an overall jerk, it seems like. And so, you know, he's not a good guy, really. And a lot of the people at the school after the fight, after it came out that he was the one that hit her with his car, everyone's like, oh, like, he did it on purpose. So, like, now the rumor is, like, that this Michael guy, like, did this on purpose to, like, target Mary, which isn't the case, but, like, I can understand the correlation because they had previous, like, you know, little, like, spats, and he was a jerk to her and her date or whatever. So I can understand that, but yeah, so he's an overall not a great guy, so we'll keep that in mind for later. In the next scene, Ruthie comes up to Annie and says she has a surprise for her. So she's like, oh, like, is it like a draw? Because she's like 7, probably. So Annie's like, oh, is it like a drawing? Or is it like you brought a random pet home? Like, what's the surprise? Because Annie knows how it is with these little kids. She's like, I don't know what this surprise could possibly be. So anyway, so the surprise is that her dad Charles is back. Because he originally was flying out because, you know, Gladys was taking him to the airport and he was going to fly out earlier. But he decided to come back because he wanted to make up with his daughter about this whole Ginger thing. So they have a whole conversation about the girlfriend situation, and they basically make up, and he says, oh, I talked to Gladys and she told me this story and I don't want that to happen. And he basically is firm and is like, I want to date Ginger, like, I like Ginger and I'm gonna do it, basically. And she's like, well, she's keeping in mind, like, the things Eric said, and that, you know, because Eric had told her also that he didn't want her to lose the like, he's like, you already lost your mom, I don't want you to lose a relationship with your dad over this whole girlfriend thing. So then Annie's like, you're right, like, you know, I should probably, she thought about it, and now that the dad's here, she's like, okay, like, I love you, like, let's make up. So Charles and Annie make up, and I wouldn't say she's, like, happy about the girlfriend situation still, but, like, you know, what are you gonna do? She doesn't want to lose her relationship with her dad, so she's gonna be accepting of it. So then after the conversation with Charles and Annie, Annie was like excited because she's like, oh, we finally made up, like everything's good. So she calls Gladys, and it's kind of funny. She calls Gladys, and she's like, thanks for like talking to my dad. Obviously something resonated with him, you know. So she's like, I didn't, you know, you convinced him to address his feelings or whatever. So she's like, Gladys is like, no problem, you know, no problem. And then Annie's like, you don't have a daughter, do you? And she's like, no. So she basically, even better, she made up the whole thing. The whole story about her daughter coming between her and someone she was dating, just to convince, I guess, Charles to talk to Annie and figure these things out, and like, I don't know. So it was kind of funny. But anyway, she basically lied about it, so she doesn't have a daughter. So even more, super funny, love this lady. So that situation gets resolved. The next scene, Mary is still at the hospital, and she's recovering from her surgery. She's gonna come home soon. But Michael, the guy that hit her with the car, comes to the hospital and admits to hitting her with his car and driving away. And basically she has a really good attitude. Like, I just mind you, like, Mary has, especially for a teenager, like a really good attitude about everything. Like, she got hit by a car, she's in the hospital, she has a knee injury, like, and she's just been pretty positive. I mean, not positive, but like, for the most part, like, she's not like freaking out. So honestly, I wouldn't blame her if she did, but she's had a pretty good attitude about it. So this Michael guy shows up, and, you know, she actually forgives him for what he did. I mean, she's not happy about it, but she forgives him. And then Wilson walks in, and Michael leaves, and Wilson's like remembering that guy from the time he tried to beat him up or whatever, or like bullying him. And he's like, I can't believe you like forgave him, basically. And Mary's like, well, if I didn't, I'd feel worse about myself. So good for her. She's being the bigger person. And we find out that the parents have decided not to press charges for this Michael guy, which is crazy, but I don't know. At least he got punched in the face, right? At least Matt did that for them. But anyway, moving on from that, we get into the next scene. Lucy is upset because Jimmy broke up with her over the hair. Super ridiculous. Don't know why he's being so dramatic about it, but like, okay, bro, good luck with that. So anyway, she's crying. Obviously, she's upset. Probably like one of her first breakups because she's like 13, so it's kind of rough. And so Simon decides he's gonna try to make this better, because he's like, well, I convinced her to get these highlights, and I feel bad. I feel somewhat responsible, basically. So in this scene, so she's like, well, I don't have my sister here, like, she's in the hospital, I can't even talk to her about this breakup. So Simon's like, all right, talk to me about it, like, let's talk about this breakup. So basically, Simon knows what's up, because family usually does, and he's like trying to comfort her, but also like, he's like, I never liked Jimmy. And I'm like, relatable, because I felt the same way, and I saw him for 2 seconds in the show, so honestly. So Simon's like, no, like, he's not a loss. So, and so he's being a good brother. And so that's the scene between them. So the next scene is between Annie, the mother, and Matt, the oldest son. She's like, well, Michael, whatever his last name is, the kid that he hit at school, he's like, his mom called and said that you hit him at school. And she's like, basically saying that you shouldn't handle it like that. And he's like, I think it's extenuating circumstances given the situation. And I totally get where he's coming from, because like, that's his sister and the whole thing's messed up. So she's basically like, I want you to go and apologize to Michael. And it's like, come on, bro, like, he hit your sister with a car, like, I don't know. I mean, these are very mature people, I guess. But anyway, like, she's like, you gotta go apologize to him. And also, there's been rumors, like I had said earlier, there's rumors that this Michael guy wanted to hit her with the car, and like she's like, can you clear that up? Like, can you try to clear that up at school or whatever to Matt? And he's like, rightfully upset, and he's like, this is the same guy that I guess it's kind of revealed that this Michael guy hassled Mary at school even before the Wilson incident where he was like bullying Wilson. So I guess this guy's just an overall jerk. He was hassling Mary before this at school. Then he was hassling Wilson, I guess, for being a teen dad, and now he hit Mary with the car. So he's like, come on, like, he deserved it, basically. But anyway, they come to a consensus, and she's like, can you apologize to Michael? And they're being mature about it. But so they have that whole conversation. So in the next, the last part of the episode, really, is basically, everyone's getting ready for Mary to come home from the hospital. They're going to have a little celebration for her to make her feel better. And Annie, so we know that Charles is back because he didn't leave. But he was going to, actually leave. Like, he was setting up a flight, but then Annie's like, I kind of want, everybody to be here when Mary gets home. Can you just stay a little bit longer? And then she also invites Ginger back, so very mature of her. And so, Ginger and Charles are there they want them there to be greeting, basically she's saying that Ginger's family. Okay, we want everyone here that's going to be there for Mary and be supportive, and she's correcting everything, basically. And, I don't think she, loves Ginger, but she's trying to be supportive. So Ginger's back. They're all waiting for Mary to get home. So then, after that scene, I guess it's a weekday. So Matt's like, are you going to call the schools and let them know we're all going to be late? Because they all want to be there when Mary gets home. And so Annie's being a rebel, and she's like, actually, we're all going to play hooky today. All the kids are going to play hooky from school, and we're going to greet Mary, basically. Which, honestly, fair, because they've all been through a lot. Mary was in the hospital. It's reasonable. But it was just funny how she's like, let's break the rules. But after that, we get into a super sad scene where the doctor told Eric that he wasn't sure if Mary was going to be able to play basketball again, which I knew this was going to come into play because Mary plays basketball for high school, and she loves basketball. So I was kind of afraid with a knee injury that, she may not be able to play. So the doctor tells Eric, I'm not sure, it's going to take some time for her to do the physical therapy, but even after that, he's like, I'm not sure how much pressure she could put on the knee. I'm not sure what's going to happen, basically. So he has to tell Mary this in the car. She asks, hey, be honest with me, what's actually going to happen? And then she starts crying, which, honestly, the whole episode, like I said, she was being so calm and collected about everything that happened. And honestly, it was time for her to break down. It was you're only human. And she's sad, and the dad's basically you can do anything, you're very determined, and he's like, you're gonna be great, you're gonna be fine. And she's say a lot of prayers for me, and he's like, I definitely am already doing that. And they just had this father-daughter moment, basically, and they hug, they're both crying, and then they decide they're gonna go in, and she's like, please don't tell anyone about this, because she doesn't like to be known as emotional, I guess. She's a lot different than Lucy. So they were like, okay, well, whatever. And so then they decide they're going to go in and see everybody. And so Wilson is there, and he's talking to Annie. He's like, I don't know if Eric had a chance to tell you that, I have a kid, basically. And she's like, yeah. And she's like, well, how about in the next few weeks you just come here and we'll get to know you better, and then we can make a decision about whether you could date her or not. Because, it's a big thing. He has a kid. I get it. But, so they're being, they're basically saying you can come over. Side note, Wilson is in the show for a while, so he will be a big player. I do remember him. So, sorry if that was a spoiler again for you, but I'm just letting you know. So after that, basically the episode just ends with all of them, Mary has a wheelchair, she's playing basketball from her wheelchair in the backyard, and the rest of them are playing with her. and they're all having that party and they're all just playing basketball together, and then Eric on the side tells Annie about what the doctor said about, like, maybe Mary not being able to play basketball anymore. And then Annie's like, what do they know? She's already playing basketball. So they're very determined that she's going to be fine. And yeah, so I guess it's, that's the conclusion of season 1 of Seventh Heaven. So we missed a little bit in between there, but I knew the finale's always got something crazy going on, so that was interesting. So my conclusion on the show, on the first season, I guess, or the last episode of the first season, is that Gladys is who I'm going to be when I grow up, minus the lying, but I gotta love her. So, love her. And Wilson, he, like I said, will be on the show for quite a bit. He seems like a nice guy right now. He's mature for his age. He's mature, obviously. He has more responsibilities than most teens. And he seems like he treats Mary well. So we'll see what happens with that. Jimmy Moon, don't stand for him. Don't like him. Don't like him for Lucy. Not a fan. She deserves better. He's bland. Not a fan. Neither is Simon. Which, Simon's stepping up and being a good younger brother, which is nice. And I like the highlights on Lucy. I thought they were nice. So, and also, Matt and Heather, I have a feeling they're going to be dating in the next season. We'll see how that goes. This was a really intense episode in a lot of ways, but, there's always random stuff going on with this family and side stories, so it's always interesting to see. So, maybe I'll do the first episode of season 2. We'll see. Let me know what you think. Like, subscribe, comment, say hi to Toad back here. Yeah, let me know what you think. If you want me to review more of this show or another show, let me know your thoughts on this episode. Let me know if you have any other shows you might want me to watch, and I'll see you guys next time.